Today I'm at the wonderful archaeological site of Termessos, and in a couple of minutes I'll be starting teaching my morning class. And one thing I'd like to ask everyone who watches my videos, not only to subscribe, not only to like, but to press the join button, the blue button that says join. And the reason why I'd like you to press that button is it's supporting my work, is keeping things going. Obviously the work I do is to keep the heritage of Cymru, the heritage of Wales out there, by making lots of videos and teaching these classes for Archaeology Cymru and Archaeology Virtual Online as well. So help me support my work. It's £1.99 a month. It's not a lot. It's not even the price of 2 pints of milk at the door. So if you want to press join, I really appreciate that. Join button, £1.99 a month, and that's it. It'll be really helping my work. It'll help my colleagues as well working for Archaeology Cymru to do their work as well. Just help us keep going. Anyway, enjoy this videoing. Enjoy the lecture. It's recorded live, and see you soon. And really appreciate your support, guys. Thank you. Get ready to lecture now. Today we're going to be looking at a very unusual topic, because when on my post-it for this class today, well, actually we did this on Tuesday. I wrote the words Tomasos down, the Paphilian tribe, and so I looked at Tomasos, couldn't find it. I ended up at Termessos, which is a completely different archaeological site. Then we realised we weren't meant to be doing Termessos, we were meant to be doing Termessos, which is Termessos. And then it suddenly sort of opened another area of archaeology that I've never really done before. Not only did I know nothing about this site at all, it's the only site that I visited in any of these seminars, I think, ever, that has never been archaeologically excavated in one way, shape or form at all. And what you see there has never been touched by archaeologists rooting around for artifacts. I don't think we've got a single artifact from Tomasos that's gone into a museum. This is the type of place, and nothing's been reconstructed there. What you see is what there is. This is actually a triumphal arch associated with Emperor Hadrian. However, we talk about Tomasos not in the context of ancient Rome, and not in the context of ancient Greece, and not in the context of ancient Turkey, because that's where it is. It's within the Turkey landscape. We talk away from the Lyceum people, and which the Lyceum people are on the southwestern coast of Turkey. And we talk about these people as being very unique, as offering us something that Homer wrote about. Homer wrote about these people. Homer's writing in around, we don't really know when Homer's writing, but he's in the sort of dark age period of ancient Greece. He's writing about 800 years BC, and he's writing about this city, this really intriguing city. This is a type of city that would be nicely featured in Clash of the Titans, as being a city just destroyed by an earthquake a few months ago, and everybody's deserted it, and there's a few arms poking out. So this is the vista. This is the, as it looks out onto the hinterland, and we see a very different landscape that we would associate with Turkey. There's trees around. There's enveloped by trees within the facade that you can see behind us is one of the other great structures associated with Tomasos, and that's the answer. One of the things I couldn't get was actually a ground plan of the site. All I've got is little aerial views, so we look down on it. So I think the best thing I can do is to sort of give you a little bit of information to sort of set the scene. And the little bit of information that I want to start off with is, and I do believe you're still looking at the temple, yeah?
Yeah.
The information I want to give you is quite succinct. Termessos, again, don't spell it Termessos, T-E-L, because you go to a Lyceum city. This is Termessos with an R. Termessos was a fortified city founded by the Paphilian tribes. Some people called them the Salumi tribe. So in other words, you don't really know what these people were called. People wrote about them, but there's lots of different names for these people after the tribal name, after the region. The region is near the peak of the mountain of Tomos in the Tarsus Taurus, Tarsus Taurus mountain range in present-day Turkey. That's the sort of mountain range in the southwestern part of Turkey. Turkey's quite a diverse landscape, and it's had quite a very interesting history, Turkey. But Turkey, of all the countries in the world, for me, looking at the backdrop, is probably one of the least researched countries in regards to archaeology in Europe. There are so many cultures and civilizations, but you get a little bit, and then you get the Hittites, and you know a little bit, and then that's it. And it's there's so much more that we can sort of learn about the whole landscape of Turkey, and these people come from the landscape of Turkey. So according to the Greek philosopher and historian Strabo, the Salumi, the Paphilian tribal people, the people of Termessos, derived their name from Telemus, an Anatolian god who was later identified with Zeus Salimus, giving the rise to the cult of the Zeus Solimus. But the one thing this thing that Strabo might be saying this, but at other times they were the Paphilian people, at other times the people of Termessos. So it's really difficult to actually pin them down into history. And the problem is pinning these people down into history, putting the weight of your thumbs on top of them. All we've got is what you see, not what's below the surface. So it's like a good relationship, isn't it? You see the person from the outside. You need to get to know the person inside, what they're really like. The person on the outside might be really beautiful, but inside they might be really twisted and rotten and so on. Or they might be absolutely beautiful inside. And this is this city of Termessos. It's a beautiful set of remains. But it's trying to really understand what's behind it all. And this is why we're struggling to understand this wonderful site. The next paragraph here is quite apt in what I've just said. Little is known about the historical context of Termessos other than Homer, other than the Greek writer Strabo, and other than a writer known as Anibis of Alexander. Let's start again. It was a text written by Arian of Nicomedia in a publication known as Anibis of Alexander. Now, in the work Anibis of Alexander, it wrote about Termessos, and it wrote about something massively important about Termessos. And you mentioned Anibis of Alexander, so yes, there's the link with Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, this is a great thing, right? If anyone ever gives you a quiz question, what's the only major city that Alexander didn't actually capture? The answer is Termessos. Now, that's its claim to fame. Alexander the Great never captured this city. Now, I don't know a single city that Alexander the Great, when he set his eye to it, didn't capture. All I know is that he didn't capture this city. He was so frustrated, he referred to this city as the site of the eagle's nest. He could not capture it. So this is this amazing, intriguing site. And the year is 333 BC. Sorry, I couldn't get my words out. He couldn't capture this, but he captured Termessos, the one over the mountain, in 334. So this is why when I was reading about Termessos, I thought, hang on a minute. 1 minute Termessos has been captured, and the next minute it wasn't, and I realised it was two different places. So this is how you can make mistakes. And actually, some of the architecture at Termessos, the Lyceum city, is very similar to the architecture here, except the architecture here is far more imposing than anywhere else that I've actually seen. And the archaeological context is that there is no archaeological context because the site's never been excavated at all, ever, as far as we know. Somebody's obviously taken a little shovel in there and probably tried to find a little bit of gold or something. But as proper archaeological excavations go, I don't have one on record. I've got none of my notes saying that anyone's ever excavated there. An inscription found in a Lycian city of Araksa. So obviously we're going to look at a map actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I need to show you where this is, because I know one of you is probably putting your hair out thinking, well, where the hell is he talking about? So let's just show you a little bit of a map. So there it is. Termessos. And over this Taurus range, you can see Termessos. Now, two different worlds. This is Termessos actually looks into the Mediterranean. It's probably a bit of an exaggeration, folks, but I'll say it. You could probably see Cyprus on a good day. But mind you, Cyprus is 120, 130 miles away, probably a little bit more than that. But the fact of the matter is, it's so high up. This city is 1,000 meters above sea level. So whenever I've given a talk and I said this is Machu Picchu is the highest known city on the planet, it might be, right? But this is one of the highest cities in the whole of Europe, and this is what we're talking about. You know, that this is how important this is how important this site is in regards to its isolation. And it was so isolated, but it had a population, some guesstimate. Now, this population is sort of total guess, but from my notes, mind. It probably had a population of 150,000 people. So when you put that in context, think about it, 150,000 people. That means it was, the population of Pompeii was 30,000. And that's fairly large. I'm going to get this wrong, but I think is it Pompeii 25 hectares in area? I'm not sure. That's probably wrong. But you've got an idea of the scale of the city because 150,000 people opposed to 30,000 people when you look at Pompeii. This must have been absolutely mega, right? But nobody lives there today. And the city was completely deserted by about 450 years AD. That's led to its longevity. That's why it's actually survived. That's why you've got the ruins behind us. This is why there's such an aura about it. Yeah. It actually, to be honest with you, if you ever asked me if I want to go and excavate there, the answer would be no, because I think occasionally it's good to have places that have never been excavated. I know it means that we don't know anything about them, but sometimes it's always good to keep guessing. We can't know all the answers, and you know what it's like in archaeology. We think we found answers, and the next minute we don't have any at all. So, you know, I think sometimes it's good to have things open. Yeah, and it's like that little mistake I made this morning with those 81 bodies found in Belgium. I just, you know, I could have just told people there was 81 bodies found in the First World War in Belgium. Isn't that brilliant? But if I hadn't read on with the article. It's a bit like this site. You could probably find a little bit. You could be excavating there and find a lot of Roman stuff, right? But it's not founded by the Romans. This city was already around. This city was probably already around 300 years before the foundation of the city of Rome in 753 BC. An inscription found in the Lycian city of Araksa gives the next mention of Tomasos, citing a war with the League of Lycian cities in about 150 years BC, and again in conflict with its Pisidian neighbour Izinda. So we've got mentions of these people. So in other words, the best thing we can say, right? The best thing we can say, it's like a city-state. It's a bit like Athens. At one point, Athens itself was a city by itself with a few acres around it. That was Athens, right? So it's probably a bit like this, but this was a little bit more than just a few acres around it. That must be added to it. Again, another little fact before we go on to the images. And before I do that little fact, right, I'm just going to check on something a minute. Be back. front.
Hooray!
I actually wanted to finish my toast, actually. We got to think about our bellies, haven't we, Keith?
Which one?
So, in 71 BC, Tomasos allied with Rome. Now, that's quite a statement, isn't it? In 71 BC's Termessos allied with Rome. So what we'll do, we'll keep that statement over there, let it hover, just let it hover. So it's 71 BC. Rome itself has just defeated, well, just 7 years earlier, defeated Spartacus, because I'm Spartacus. So defeated Spartacus. Rome was in a little bit of turmoil. It wasn't really expanded yet. We need to see the likes of Crassus, and we need to see the likes of Julius Caesar, and we need to see the likes of Mark Antony and Ptolemy. And the point is, no, did I say Ptolemy? I meant Pompey. A similar name. Sorry. You should have corrected me on that, Keith. Anyway, it's a little bit before that, but at that point, Rome itself was trying to create alliances with other states. And strangely enough, they made an alliance with the people of Termessos, and it actually saved the city of Termessos forever. It saved it for archaeologists today, like me and you, and for you to see. Because the alliance with Rome itself meant that Termessos wouldn't be besieged by Rome, it wouldn't be invaded by Rome, the legions wouldn't go there, and so on and so on. So it wasn't devastated, it wasn't put to the sword, it wasn't... And actually, there's another reason why the Romans probably left it alone as well, and this sort of pact. It was a bit like the scenario with Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein was the country that survived in the Second World War. Liechtenstein had a pact with the Third Reich and Italy, but they wouldn't have been interested in Liechtenstein either. Liechtenstein's a wealthy country, but it's up there in the hills, probably difficult to capture. So Termessos was a bit like that anyway. Whether it allied with Rome or not, Rome would have probably said, "Oh look, stay over there." A bit like what Hitler said to Liechtenstein. I've watched film footage of the president of Liechtenstein having a meeting with Adolf Hitler. It's Adolf Hitler saying, "Yeah, you can keep yourself to yourself. It's fine. We're not going to invade you." They had no plans to invade them anyway. But this is a bit like Termessos in 71 BC. It was a very wealthy city, but it would have been impossible to have captured. It just would have not happened, right? It would have been a bit like besieging Masada, but with climbing a 1,000 meters up with full Roman legions and kits and all the rest of it. It basically was a city of the gods. It was a city of Zeus, as is embodiment in the Anatolian gods, as we've already mentioned. Zeus, Salimus. And so it was granted independent status, ensuring the freedom of its citizens to have autonomy. And we know that it was granted autonomy because they issued coins which had the word autonomous on them. So it's almost as if it's having a coin which is traded throughout the Roman Empire, but we are an autonomous region of Rome. We're independent. And the Rome probably traded with them and everything, and it was all good. The reason why I'm making such a fuss of this is because it meant that this city, Termessos, survived. But, like with many things, like with what I discussed yesterday with my... Oh, by the way, those that don't know, if you want to join my Roman sessions on a Wednesday between 1:30 and 2:30, please let me know. It's a bit of a blast because I sit here rambling on about the Romans and everyone loves it. But the point I made yesterday was this thing about Pax Romana. Wherever the Romans went, whatever the influence the Romans had, as long as you played ball, the Romans left you alone. So in other words, when you look at Roman Britain, what you do see is 99% of the population remains British. There's a military invasion, but the cultural invasion is both ways. And it's that thing to be remembered. For example, when you look at Termessos, it was that interchange, and eventually there was a great deal of Roman influence on Termessos. People thought, you know, we like a little bit of the Roman building style, as we liked a little bit of the building styles from ancient Greece, as we liked a little bit of the former peoples who existed many times before the city was erected. They liked some of the building styles, for example, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. And the Lyceum people, they took from all these different people, all these styles. So when we actually look at some of the images and we start to get into it, it's really, the architecture is really Roman in some places, and the architecture is something very different in other places. Some of the architecture actually reminds me of South American architecture, and there's obviously no link. Rome's influence is apparently within the city's monuments that show elements of Greek and Roman architectural features, and with the construction of the Triumphal Arch in dedication to the Emperor Hadrian. At that point, there would have probably been lots of Roman and Greek traders in the city anyway. And sort of just finish off, what I'm going to do before I really upset Goff when he says he hasn't seen any images today, let's just leave that text a minute. So what I'd like to do is, we're again looking at the Temple of Hadrian. This is the Temple of Hadrian I mentioned, and it's in the state as it collapsed. Now, in my text, and I'm going to sort of go away from the text and I'm going to probably come back to it, it says that the site was abandoned because of two reasons. And anyone guess what those reasons are? Go on, Keith, give me a guess. It's not, why would the city be abandoned? It's not the usual reasons, except for one of them. Go on.
Earthquakes.
That's one.
Plague.
No, it's not obvious. No. But it is obvious. It's an essential need.
Water.
Yeah. Well done. The aqueduct. The aqueduct. The earthquake smashed the aqueduct. Right. The aqueduct could not be repaired. The population were without water. The cisterns started to fail, and then they abandoned the city.
Oh.
However, the earthquake is not the direct reason, because lots of the buildings would still stand within earthquake events, and I will show you why. The indirect cause is actually the earthquake smashes the aqueduct, and then people don't have water in the city. So I'm saying the indirect thing. Lots of the buildings still stood, so people were able to still live in them. But without the water, they had to abandon the city, and that was basically it. And you can imagine, if there's 150,000 people, I'm doubting the 150,000 people number. But if we went for 50,000 people, that's the population of Barry. Imagine imagine 50,000 angry Barry people. You know what I mean? It would be mobs.
It would. I'd rather not.
Yeah, exactly. So we got these steps to the Arch of Hadrian, which indicates that there's a temple dedicated to Hadrian. Termessos, there it is. Keep it on the map. Look out to Cyprus. Anatolia, which is down by here, and if we go to there, Antalya, and the view itself. If you want to look direct. Oh God! I tell you what, I got some numpties in my Rhonda class. I'm not going to mention Mike. He said, "What's that blue stuff?"
It's the sky.
It's the sky, yeah. It's the water, of course, Keith. It's nonsense. And one of the things, because you're so high up there, because you're 1,000 meters up, part of the view from the city is blocked, but the southerly sort of approach has got a beautiful view vista out to the sea, and it goes. You can, if you put basically a bit of a straight line on there, and you go, there you go, it misses, and it just goes that straight out to sea. So what you've got, the landscape itself is very hilly, but within those hills there are lots of trees. So you've got lots of trees around here, and then what you do find, that you've got a very rich agricultural plain and a very rich alluvial plain, and then eventually you're going to go down to the bottom, and you're going to have harbourage. I tell you what, you can cut and paste that, Keith, and you can take it, because that's a good bit of artwork there. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It is. So what we're going to do, I need to move now on. to get rid of that question mark. I need to move on, and I need to go. So what we're seeing now, we're going down on the aerial views, right? I'm half expecting a knock on the door because I managed to get onto the Turkish military ordnance site, and I had flashes coming up on the screen. You should not be looking at these images. On that note, I went onto Google. I couldn't really find much on Google. I went on to something else quite dodgy, and I actually found an aerial view of Termessos. Right, so what we have there, we have the we've got the that's the mount associated with Salamis, Zeus Salamis, and what you can then see is you've got through this valley, you've got to look out to the sea. Termessos Necropolis. Now, the word necropolis relates to a place of the burials, right? Now, this is a really important point. At Termessos, the burials are within the walls of the city. And what type of people used to put their burials within the walls of the city? Come on, who are the people at Petra called, Keith?
Arabs.
Veterans.
No.
Middle Eastern.
No, we did a whole lecture on it.
That was a long while ago.
The Nabataeans.
Oh yeah, them. I thought that automatically. Yeah.
The Nabataeans themselves. One thing that we would associate with the Nabataeans is they would have their wonderful architecture in the middle of the city, and then along the side, along the cliff edge, you have the tombs, if you can remember, and then directly underneath the tombs you've got the water, you've got the great cisterns.
Yeah.
Now, this is about I'm not. Oh God, I get my distances wrong, but we've got a good chunk of about 800 odd miles before you can actually get to there, and I'm not exactly sure that that's right, but anyway, it's a good distance from here to the Nabataean landscape. But they're doing exactly the same thing. They've got this wonderful ornamental architecture, but they've got the burials within the city, and they've got the cisterns underneath the burials. Exactly the same thing that these people are doing. But the other similarity is actually, the other big similarity is that these people were inland. The Nabataeans were also inland, so they had to have a different relationship with water than normal people, right? Because every single drop of water was important, so they had to have these big systems. They had to have this great aqueduct, and I was just surprising that they had one aqueduct. Maybe they had more. We don't really know much more. So as we sort of go down on the aerial view, what we can see, and this is as best we get another couple more of these. You've got this bit of a ridge, and it sort of rises quite steep, and it actually drops quite steeply here, right? So there's the gateway into the city, and you've got two levels of walls. You've got one level of wall here, and with another plan, you've got another level of walls. So you've got two layers of walls, and you've got, there it is, you can see the amphitheater. Now the amphitheater, you haven't seen the amphitheater yet, guys, but it's spectacular. There is the amphitheater coming up now. So you've got the I mentioned earlier on a moment ago, you've got the upper city walls. So you've got two sections of walls. You've got the lower city walls, and you've got the upper city walls, and you've got this huge gymnasium smack bang in the middle of the city, and you've got associated temples which you can just about see through the aerial photography here, and you've got some other remains, and there it is. You've got the amphitheater. Now, albeit the amphitheater, it said, would have accommodated between 5,000 and 6,000 people, and that amphitheater itself, we will do the great reveal. So that gymnasium itself, the remains themselves of the gymnasium, we will have a look at, and obviously we'll look at the amphitheater and some of the other buildings and this building wall behind us. So let's sort of move on with that. I keep ticking. There you go. That's that. And again, going down onto these. The aerial photography isn't showing us a great deal, but we do have naturally some of what I'm describing, some substantial structures, some substantial buildings, and obviously the lower wall described there. And there is the amphitheater really coming up. So you can actually see, there's a little hole there. The Great Cistern, you can see a little hole as you sort of fall into the cistern. And it's probably best not to go up there without a guide. This is one of the greatest unexplored wonders of the ancient world, and it's a great. The Turks are trying to get people out there to visit it, but it's just like 1,000 meters up, and it's just it's easier to visit some of the other sites. Ephesus, just go to Ephesus instead of this site. Ephesus is far easy. Yeah, this site you've got to go up a windy road, and there's not toilets and a museum and stuff there and whatever. They're starting to change that actually, but as we sort of move on a little bit more and we look at some of the spectacular images that I'm just about to show you, and we go now, what I mentioned, this is actually a sarcophagus. What I did mention is that they around the city itself, the sarcophagus, people were buried around sarcophagus. You could see them littering the site as well. So they had rock cut tombs as a backdrop to the city, as we see with the Nabataeans. And what you can see is these stone sarcophagi, and with wonderful stone lids and so on and so on. But this is very different from, say, a Roman city. The Roman rule was that the living were inside the city and the deceased were outside the city. These people, like the Nabataeans, had a very different rule altogether. And it's all carved out the local rock, and there is the amphitheater. Now we can see the mountain there, the mountain associated with Zeus, Salamis. And if you probably stood by there, you could look out all the way out to the sea. I think it's probably highly unlikely you'd have been able to see Cyprus. If there was an optical illusion, you may have been able to. But this amphitheater itself, this theatre, looks very much, and there's an acute drop behind there. So if you're a bit drunk and you went a bit further on, those are the stalls in front. Those are the seats, and the seats themselves are untouched since the day they were last used. There's no restoration there. There's no nothing. It's as it was. And I'm just going to look at my notes again. I got some little bits and notes. So Aris Peak, we've already mentioned, it would have had a population of about 150,000 people. And I'm going to stop because we are meant to be doing civilizations, but this is a civilization in itself. It's a city-state. These are an individual people, a recognised people. So it's not just a city we're looking at. We're looking at the representations of a way of life, a civilised way of life. And actually, Keith, it's interesting to say there's no evidence that these people were ever besieged, and there's no evidence that these people were wiped out due to a war or a plague or anything else. There's none of the usual things. So this is why this site is so interesting from that perspective. It held up against Rome, and it held up against Alexander the Great with two rampant fingers, and you're just thinking that is a feat. Alexander the Great didn't take this city, and its longevity meant, and then its end, to have a royal palace, to have the great gymnasium that we've already seen, to have buildings that we haven't been able to recognise yet, to have an Odeon, which is that great theatre itself. The 6 temples, I've been calling it amphitheater, but it's classed as an Odeon. 6 temples of varying sizes, including one to Emperor Hadrian. An agora, or a marketplace, naturally you're going to have that in a city. A council chamber, otherwise known as a boleterion. And when we think about this, when we examine some of the things that we do know, there's so much that we don't know. And to the southwest and the north of the city, mostly within the city walls, there are large cemeteries containing rock-cut tombs and stone-cut sarcophagi lying around the place, just lying around. There's probably loads still lying around that nobody's ever peered in, and why should they peer in? Do you know what I mean? Termessos, after a gradual decline, the gradual decline was from about 200 years AD to about 400 years AD, and they made it a bishopric, basically its own bishop, by around just into the 400s. Unfortunately, there was nobody to be a bishop of, so it was an abandoned city. It's basically a rotten borough. Yeah, it was so you can imagine now, I'm the bishop of Termessos. The people of Termessos, come to me. Right, anyone got any requests? Right, I'll do it now, loves. Right? Yes? So he can do his sermon forever. You can do his sermon forever. Mind you, there might be a few sheep wandering around, and they might be comfort for the bishop. When an earthquake destroyed the primary aqueduct, cutting off vital water to the inhabitants, that was it. That was the end. But you know what? This is the third time I've done this week, and it was building inside me on Tuesday to say that there's something I don't understand about this, and there's actually a lot I don't understand about this site, and all archaeologists would be the same. It's almost as if we don't have any evidence of disease. We don't have any evidence of warfare. The earthquakes and the cutting off the aqueduct. But I'm starting to feel like there's another reason why the city was abandoned. Probably the same reason why the Nabataeans abandoned their city. But the Nabataeans were affected by warfare. So there's something I'm really not getting. But I'll leave that one there. Anyway, carry on. Let's look at my images. And now, I looked at that, right, when we were looking at this on Tuesday. One of the things that sprung to mind, if we want to zoom in a bit more, we zoom in, that one thing that sprung to mind was that doesn't look, that looks very different architecture, right? The theatre, the theatre itself looks Roman, but this architecture looks very different from this architecture, looks very different from this architecture, right? So as we sort of zoom back out again, and we go to there, what you can see is it's amazing when you look closer that all that there collapsed and it was just left. Nobody's gone through it all. And one thing I was thinking of was that maybe the city started to collapse and decay after people left it. When we looked at the people of Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon, Pablo Benito, there was a sense that the cities were just abandoned. There was discussion at one or two localities that there were signs of dead bodies lying around underneath the masonry and all the rest of it. But if we take that away, if we look at some of those other examples in Nevada and within that landscape of the Pueblo people, what we do see is an abandonment, and then everything else sort of goes into place. And this is my feeling. I'm feeling possibly that this city was already more or less abandoned before the aqueduct collapsed. This is what I'm saying, because when I made the statement about the aqueduct led to the city being abandoned, the thing that sprung to mind, why didn't they repair it? Surely they had the engineers to repair it. If you've got a flowing aqueduct, if an aqueduct's flowing, then you've got people who are able to maintain it. Because if you didn't have people to maintain it, the aqueducts would fail. It's like a modern watercourse. There was we've got a very small membership in the Rhondda Valley, but in the Rhondda Vach we've got 2 members up there, and in the Rhondda Valley we've got about 5 or 6. But in the Rhondda Vach I've got 2 members, And one of the members told me, Martin, he said that because the dam hadn't been repaired at the top of the valley, one day there was a huge crack in it, and if somebody hadn't seen that crack, the whole valley would have been flooded, and thousands of people would have lost their lives. Right? That's a modern aqueduct, and I'm not an aqueduct. Oh God, yeah, a modern dam. Yeah, sorry, a modern dam, and if somebody hadn't seen that crack in the dam, the whole valley would have been flooded and people would have died. And that's a modern dam that hadn't really seen much maintenance. So the point I'm trying to make, if you're going to have an aqueduct, you're going to have to maintain it every single year to keep it going. And if there is an earthquake, you're going to have the engineers to deal with the repairs on that aqueduct. So this is why my thinking's gone into it. So I don't think the aqueduct collapsing was the cause of the abandonment of the city. I believe that I feel that the city was abandoned before that.
Yeah, declining certainly.
A massive decline. It's like so suddenly you get to the height of a city, and it's that Seneca collapse, isn't it? Where it goes really rapidly. It rises and it goes just like the collapse. This was probably more rapid, and the city was completely vacant before the major earthquakes. But there is one thing about the earthquake theory, right? The stones are locked in place to deal with earthquakes. When you start to look at the masonry, we'll go to the masonry now. Right, this is. Where's he gone? Oh, he's gone. Goff wanted to see this. All right. Hang on. We'll do the other image. We'll keep Goff happy because Keith, tell me when he's there. So this again, you can see the architecture here. This is another part of the city, and one thing this looks a little aqueducty to me, but it's part of one of the more stately buildings in Termessos. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this looks very medieval. This looks very different from the other architecture, but it's not medieval. It's from that period before the abandonment. And you can see the arches look very different. They don't look the same. Goff's back. They don't really look the same. And you're looking at this architecture, and then the image, Goff, we've kept this image. We went to this next image and you were out the room. That.
Yeah. That's behind you.
I want your reaction. What does that say to you?
Well, it's so symmetrical. It's so well made. It doesn't look particularly Greek, but yeah, it's great.
It doesn't look Roman either. And the other thing.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we were taught at that. I don't know if you left the room at that point, but I was talking about the idea that I believe the city was abandoned before the aqueduct collapsed. The aqueduct collapsed. No, yeah, right. And then I mentioned that this thing about earthquakes. I mentioned about the way these buildings are constructed to deal with earthquake activity. Because if you look closer at the stonework. Right, what you can see is even though the blocks look regular, they are different sizes, and they almost interlock in different ways. And you see this a bit more clearly with some of the other architecture I'm actually going to show you. Instead of having the blocks all the same size, like a Roman building or a Greek building, all of these blocks are different sizes. They are. If you look at the way those panels are there. It's rather interesting the way this is all put together, and there's you can see on the side there it doesn't seem to be as regular as it should be. If you're gonna build something like this, surely everything would be the same size. Everything would have the same symmetry, but it doesn't seem to have that symmetry. And I believe that's possibly because this is to deal with seismic activity. And the answer is, in what I've already said, it dealt with seismic activity because it's still standing today. That stood for 1,600 years with no maintenance. And there is a reason for that, because of the way it's constructed. Going back to the aqueduct would have been built the same. but when it collapsed, it was because there was nobody left to maintain it. And the other thing as well is nobody can tell me I'm wrong, because nobody has excavated this site. We don't have the foggiest knowledge about these people other than the earliest reference from Homer and the reference associated with the Romans in AD 71 BC. Then we got the final reference to do with it being a bishopric in about the 400s. And then that's all we've got. And again, everything folks tells me, and this is, you can say, oh, why, how is it, right? You've discounted, and how is it all the other writers have discounted warfare? Well, if this city had been destroyed by war, right, why are these buildings still standing? So we can discount that, we can put a cross there. What about disease? Well, disease leaves different signs. Disease leaves, how can I describe this? When I've studied Roman Britain, for example, what you do see is that when you get a city which is ravaged by disease, what you see is people hanging on, and they try to maintain buildings, and they try to patch them up, and they try to keep things going, and you can see it. But this has all been abandoned at one moment. That's why I'm discounting disease. So I've discounted those two. I've actually discounted all the other theories, and I'm back to that something else happened that led these people to abandon this city. And you know, and Keith, back to that thing about the gradual desertion of the city. Well, that would show decay, and we don't have those signs of decay. That goes back to that as well. I'm not saying I'm right, but what I'm saying is if you start to look at this as well, the one architectural style is completely different from the architectural style on the lower story. Where the top bit, these it looks like these are bricks turned side on. So you've got the frogs poking. So you've got these nice framed sections of stonework, and you've got this nice sort of string course running across there. You've got the nice plinths of the in relief columns there. But then you actually go down there, and you've got these doorways, and the doorways. Where's the windows? Do you know what I mean? It's I've chucked that in there. Where's the windows? That'll come back to haunt us in a moment. Where's the windows?
It's more just like a sort of an edifice, isn't it? You know,
yes,
monumental, Gothic almost. Yes.
You know, on Tuesday, I made a mistake which I was grateful for. Right? I said, you're look at that window on the far right, on the far right there. So if we get making my drawing better, if you look at that window on the far, not the window, the door. It did come back to haunt me, Keith. I said there was no window. That doorway. So I looked at that and I thought, oh, actually, that doorway is at an angle, and actually no, it was the shadow. And actually, that got me thinking. Well, I've made that little bit of a mistake, and I've said it, and I corrected myself for that mistake. And it's, you can see different things when you look at the architecture for this site. And if we move on with the next image, so obviously I've got this image behind me, so it's not going anywhere. So if we move on a tad bit more, and we see, what we do see is that this itself, this is the exterior of this interior, right? And what you can see is this a doorway or a window, right? Because this clearly looks like, is this a doorway? Well, you would assume it's got to be a window, right? But there's no windows on the lower course, which is the point I was trying to make. And as you look out, the stonework inside is completely different from the outside, which is also odd. So the dressed stone is on the outside, which is natural in building, but the stonework on the inside is a lot more cruder, but there's some sort of regularity to that as well, and it's regular and irregular at the same time. It's not random coursed, in other words. And as we sort of look out again, and we sort of really understand what we're looking at, And if anyone's realised, if anyone realises that the building wall that we're actually looking at is very close to where this structure is. So both of these buildings have this amazing view out across the landscape. And then we look at this. And everything's... Can you see that the mountain itself dominates all these ruins? The mountain of associated with Salamis Zeus, that's where the gods were. So in other words, these people had their own Mount Olympia next door to them. So in other words, they could see the gods. Everything was looked over by the gods, particularly Zeus, and everything looked up to Zeus as well. Now this is actually the gymnasium site. Now you know that I said about windows. Hang on a minute. Let's move on. Oh my God, I missed the wrong one. Hang on a minute. We've missed an image a minute. Hang on, I'll have to find that after the break. So the thing I was going to actually show you is that that's actually a blocked window. And that is actually a blocked doorway. And this itself is actually the gymnasium building. And you can see all the collapse of the stone as well. And we've seen the aerial view of this building, all these really finely dressed stones. And if we sort of move on to this, which is even queerer, and these are some of the rock cut tombs associated with this city. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to our wonderful image here, and I just want to talk about the architecture for a little moment. That's it, zoomed in a little bit more. So what you could say that you've got this sort of this string course running across here, and it's obviously to support beams as well. And you can see this arch, which is a false arch because it's blocked in with a false window. And as you look down, the amazing thing is this is all as this building collapsed, all 1,600 years ago, and it's not been touched. And you've got these little pathways, and you've got these trees. And another thing that we haven't really touched upon is actually the burials. Now, when I actually realised that we weren't looking at Termessos, it was because I looked at these. I mentioned at the beginning there are two sites. I thought the Termessos site was the same site as the Tomasos site. So you've got on the opposite side of the Taurus Mountains, in the landscape of Lyceum, you've got the city of Termessos, and you've got the city of Termessos that we're looking at today. Now these are tombs at the Lyceum city of Termessos, and these are the ones at Termessos that we're looking at today. And there's two acute differences. These are really skillfully made, but they're very cluttered. These are skillfully made, and they're not so cluttered. And as we were looking at this as well, what we did realise was that is actually all carved out of rock. You can see the chest, the sarcophagus on the base there, beautifully carved. This is all carved, I should say, into the rock or out of the rock, depending on which perspective you actually look at it. And actually the access into this area is actually from above. And this is where they buried their loved ones, but they also buried their loved ones in sarcophagus, which are actually in external mausoleum across the site as well, as you will see. And what you can see as well is actually these wonderful carved heads. These gentle, subtle carved heads. And obviously over time people have been to the city and they've entered these tombs, or maybe I'm gonna take a punt, because I'm either 50% right or 50% wrong, and another archaeologist is going to say the same thing. I actually believe that maybe these may have actually always been open. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when we look at Etruscan civilization, what we do see is the Etruscans would visit their loved ones on a very, very regular basis. They would have a doorway that was open, and they would go down the steps, and they would sit on a stone seat opposite the sarcophagi in an Etruscan tomb, and there would be a complete representation of the person who's actually within that sarcophagi in this underground tomb. And the underground tomb would be dressed very ornately in the style of the house that person used to live in. But the person's actually visiting down there, having a conversation, and saying, think things are okay, and yeah, the children are okay. But I got really worried about my husband and so on. And they're chatting away, and then they go up the stairs and they go out again. And we know that was the case with Etruscan tombs, because the wear on the steps going into Etruscan tombs in Italy was the wear was immense. So you could tell that people went down there on a regular basis, year after year after year after year, generation after generation, visiting their loved ones down below, their ancestors and so on. And actually, the reason why I wanted to share that story is because I just felt we really know that, and we really feel that with Etruscan tombs. And I'm actually thinking that these people were very similar. These people in Turkey were very similar, because when we think about the Etruscans, what we do find is that the Etruscans lived fairly high up as well, in sort of upland citadels, a bit like this upland citadel as well. And they had great reverence for their ancestors, and they wanted to keep their ancestors with them. And I'm actually getting that with this civilization, with these people. I'm actually getting that feeling. Up until this week, I didn't know anything about them, but the wonderful position I find myself in is that I've studied lots of civilizations. So you can grab a little bit from over there, and you can grab a little bit from there. It's a bit like how we assess people. There's somebody with a tattoo on their face, and they've shaved their hair off, and we think, oh, well, don't really think I want to trust that person. And they come up to you and they're really smiling, they're really jokey and laughy, and you get it wrong. But your guess about that person might actually be right. It's 50-50, isn't it? It's always 50-50. But it's more 50-50 with this, because we don't know anything more than what I'm showing you and telling you. Mm. I've had a bit of a second wind at this minute, so I'm actually gonna carry on. I've actually found when I go into a little trance, it gets me back into things. So I've managed to do that. So I'm just gonna get to another image. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm going to hang on a minute. Right. Yes. I really, you know what? I would really like to have managed to get a clearer image of this. This is actually a sarcophagus. And you can see the representations of these nymphs, these figures on there. And if you, one thing we sort of spotted, I really wish I had this a bit more clear. You're so limited getting images and so on. But I think I had one of my gang on a Tuesday. They were actually shouting at me, and they were saying, look at that, and I'm saying, what? Look, there's writing at the top there. And I'm actually thinking, actually, I do believe there is. I don't think that's just sort of ornate scrollwork. I do believe that that's carved writing. And then what you do, you've got these little cherub heads looking out at you, the nice little bit of smile, they're sort of looking at you. Really wish we could have this a bit more clear. Do you know what? In the break, I'm gonna really scroll through my images. There's two images that I got missing, so I'm going to see if I can find a clear one of this. If I can't, then you've seen it. But what you can actually see is I think there's no crudeness about this. You've got beautiful voluptuous representations of women, and I do believe that's a male on that side, the lady's breast there, and I do believe you've got an angel with really interesting features as well. But what we do have, we've got the canthus leaf, and you've got a bit of an Ionic style there as well. So you've got Ionic canthus, and then you've got this sort of Doric type of base, and you've got a mixture, a microcosm of all different sort of styles, and you would find something like this elsewhere, but it is the type of thing that you would find within this beautiful, undeniable gem of archaeology. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I think they were a bit late making a UNESCO World Heritage Site. After all, folks, if you're going to try and loot and plunder this site, there's only one way in and there's one way out. And the Turkish authorities have been pretty good at... The Turkish authorities, there's a mixed press with the Turkish authorities. If they want to stop you looting a site, you're not going to end up with your life when you come out of it. So I want to share some of the other information I've got actually on this locality, and I've probably got a feeling we might be finishing a little bit earlier this week, but we'll see. So here we go. This isn't a tourist article, but it's sort of, I'll paint it as a visit to the ruins of the ancient city of Termessos is an unforgettable experience, completely different from visiting ancient cities anywhere along the Mediterranean coast. Bit of ad-libbing at this minute. First of all, to get to Termessos, you need to travel to the altitude of 1,000 meters, deep into the Taurus mountain range. The difficulties of this journey are quickly compensated by the vista that some of you have sort of had a little bit of glimpse at from the ancient theatre, which is considered to be most ideally situated of all the ancient buildings of its kind in Turkey. I would say all localities that wish to be like this is the king, you know, this is the one. And you know what? There's a couple of images that I want to look at, so I'm just gonna do look at in the break, and there's also I want to write down that carving. I need to remember that, so that's what I'm going to do. So this thing about the view, I need to look at that thing about the view as well, because I want to see if I can get another view in the break of looking out maybe towards this plane out towards the sea. I'll see if I can see that as well. Not much time to do it. So the difficulties of actually getting there, this sort of the vista seen from the ancient theatre, looking out at that landscape. Secondly, this eagle's nest, as Termessos was called by Alexander the Great, lies in the national park, where the remains of ancient buildings are nestled among pine forest, and a number of rare plant species grow undisturbed by mass tourism. So you'd be lucky to actually get there. And to be honest with you, I've never heard of this site. I'm sure that maybe Andrea's heard of this site, or somebody's heard of this site, but I've not heard of this site. And I didn't know it was actually called this. I thought it was called something like Paphilia or somewhere, but it wasn't. That's the name. That's one of the tribal names of the people. So Termessos. So finally, Termessos is shrouded in legends and myths and things that go bump in the night. Objects of fascination and studies conducted by many travellers and scholars, but none of them have excavated at the site. People have been going there, but nobody's excavated. There was a Polish researcher who visited this site in the 1800s. He told us about this site in the 1800s, but he didn't dig it. He didn't excavate it. And we've got a few other individuals being there as well. The uniqueness of this place has not gone unnoticed because it is a World Heritage Site. So we mentioned about Homer, and we mentioned the association with Homer, and Termessos appeared in Homer's literature in Iliad, and he mentions that Bellerophon, the Greek hero who rode a winged horse Pegasus, and became known as the Chimera Killer, was commissioned by the king of Lycia to conquer Termessos. There you go. That mention there. The king of Lycia was commissioned to conquer Termessos. You're gonna get that city-state. We're gonna go in there. And now Homer's writing about this city. He's telling us 2,800 years ago. So the city must have been there for a few hundred years before that. And it's that idea of not knowing that brings it into the legend and myths where it should be. You never know. It's the Iliad. So when are we putting the Iliad? So we're putting it maybe at the time of the Mycenaeans, about 1,400 years BC or somewhere like that. So that makes this city standing then. So that would mean that some of the remains that we're looking at have been left untouched since they were deserted, and maybe some of them were built 3,400 years ago, if the myth and legends is to be believed. Apart from this story, then we know very little else. We know about people wanting to besiege it, and Alexander the Great arrived, and he just stood there, and he just thought, I just cannot capture this. He's just no way he could do it. And Termessos is involved in a number of conflicts with various different Lycian cities, and then the city of Isinda, which is another place I've never come across before, Isinda. And there's the other thing as well, is in this sort of campaign in about the 150s year BC, this little 1 year, that goes away, and then in another conflict, he allies himself with the king of Pergamon, Attalos II. And when these people allied with the king of Pergamon, which is another state again in Turkey, the state of Pergamon, we've all heard about the state of Pergamon, but we don't know the foggiest about it. And they erected a monument to Attalus II in Termessos as well. It's almost as if the people of Termessos managed to ally themselves. It's a bit like share dealing, isn't it? If you can bet on Amazon and Microsoft, and you're going to be all right. You know, it's a bit like that. In the period of Roman domination, they were seen as a friend of Rome. They were the friend and ally of Rome. What a great tribute to bestow upon Termessos. The residents of the city could set their own laws. They were also guaranteed the freedom and the right to mint their own coins. Autonomous. Remember that? The wording of the coin. Autonomous. The end to the prosperity and existence. Now, this is that thing that I keep reading, and I don't go with it. So I'll give you what's written, and then you can make up your own mind. I've said it, and I'll say it again before we have the break. The end to the prosperity and existence of Termessos came with an earthquake that destroyed the aqueduct supplying drinking water to the city. That's not written down, that's presumed. The exact year of this event has not been determined. So we don't know. We don't know if that's right or wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're right. Although it is known that even in the early Christian period, it was the seat of a bishop. But the bishop presided over an empty city. His work must have been quite easy. I've got to be honest with you. He's writing back. He's writing back to whatever see or whatever whoever's in charge of him, wherever they're based, and he's saying, "Oh, I'm a great time. You know, the people are really calm. They're giving me no hassle." And the church is saying, "Well, where's your income?" "Oh, I had to build a new cathedral last week. It's all right. Don't worry, you'll have a bit in the end, you know." But there was no one there. It was completely deserted by about 400 years AD, and from that time until its discovery by the modern travellers, it fell into oblivion. And there it shall stay into oblivion. And there, after the break, we'll look at a little bit of the archaeology. We'll look at a little more of these images, and actually, then we'll be finished for the day. So anyway, I've given you my best for the past hour and 20 odd minutes, so I'm going to find out if there's any questions. And I got to be honest with the one who deserves to ask a question, and the one who's had so much hassle with Facebook this week from me is Goff. So go for it, Goff.
Thank you. It's very interesting. Just one question. Difference between an Odeon and an amphitheater.
That's what you want to do.
What is it?
That's what I'm going to tell you after the break.
All right. Thank you.
Right. Basically, I made the one answer might be is that an amphitheater is usually completely circular, right? So because that's, if you look at the aerial, I tell you what I'll do is get an aerial view of that theater, and you can see where it sort of comes into the amphitheater, the theater mode. And Odeon is just for theatrical plays.
Okay.
Oh, well, I've actually answered the question.
Yes. So
that's it. So it's the form. So you've got the Odeon, and you've got the theatre, and it's and you've got everything else that's going on there as well. I think earlier on I mentioned that this is the Odeon, but also in my notes it also said that this is also a separate site of the theatre. So there's an Odeon and a theatre, and I've been describing it likewise, so it could have a dual use, so I'm right and wrong at the same time. But the building we have been seeing is the theatre, the big building, which I've also described as an amphitheatre. But the Odeon is also a separate site. So I'm glad I cleared that one up. I'm glad you asked about that. See, it's easy to get confused in this, and I've managed to get everyone confused. Right, Keith?
No, I don't think I've got any questions. Thanks very much at the moment. That's very good.
Everybody watch this. Chris, you see she was straight into it. Chris, go for it. She's not going to say a word.
Chris is muted. She's still muted.
I tell you what.
Okay, there we are. I'm unmuted.
Are you going to say anything, darling?
Yes, just an observation about the architecture, really, and the arches. It's, a Roman arch. They have keystones, don't they? Am I wrong in thinking that? But they didn't seem to have any. They're very shallow arches on those tombs, and which didn't appear to have a keystone.
Ah, right, on the rock cut tombs.
But also on the arches on that, is it gymnasium? No, not
right,
gymnasium.
Because it was a false arch. It was actually being supported by the architecture below, so it was a false arch.
Yeah, but I think there was one you showed earlier.
Yes,
It's three.
Yeah, there was three of them in a row. Yeah, and they were definitely. That's definitely. There was no sort of central keystone, and there was no. That was definitely not in a Roman style. That's what we were saying. But as soon as Goff came back, we had to get onto the thing I was going to talk about.
Yeah,
but you are really right.
One more thing about the side of the tomb that you've just shown. It was quite interesting to see one of the figures was in a very informal pose. He was sort of sat. And he had his leg up with his arm around it, and you don't really see that on ancient tombs. They're all very static.
Okay, around his knee.
Yeah.
So you basically you've got side on. You've got this sort of leg draping over a bit like this.
Yeah, it's very informal, isn't it?
Hiya, boy. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, that's my observations.
Yeah, so it was a bit like this, wasn't it? Yeah, I see that. Yeah. But well, actually, the point you made then, if we can just go, right. So obviously that's supported from the stonework below.
Yeah.
So that's a false arch, and then what you have, this is actually carved into the rock, so there's no sort of definition because it's actually in relief anyway, so it's not supporting anything. But the image these here, there is no sort of regimented keystone with that.
No.
That is their architecture. And you know what? I tried to look up for an image on the aqueduct. I could not find one. It's just really difficult to actually get a site plan. In the little break now, I'm just going to try and find that view, and see if I can get another one of the carving, and I see what. Oh, I need to get that other view of the gymnasium as well. So four things, right? So anyway, back to it. So.
Thanks, Carl. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, don't worry. Chris don't want to say anything anyway. Look at him.
No questions for me.
Right. Oh, I would mention as well, if anyone does want a copy of this, let me know as I'm chatting, and join in my Roman thing on a Wednesday. It's a bit of a balls boy type thing that we do. Ellen.
Oh, well, sort of, yeah. Obviously, the whole thing's a thriving civilization because it was going from at least 330 BC to 450 AD.
Yes.
The kingdom is a lovely river with huge plains either side, access to the sea, and a massive amount of mountainous area, which you pointed out with a big mountain range. You're unable to live up there without water. And the city was up there. So the geology and the climate are rocky, sparse vegetation, very dry. And the only way you could possibly live there was with a guaranteed water source. If this earthquake, so we don't at the moment know whether it's fictitious or not, it wouldn't, if it happened, it wouldn't just damage an aqueduct, could even result in river water or the source of water just disappearing downward through rock and, being non-visible, non-accessible at all. The city wall, it looks more like a boundary wall. It's based on a very high part with a very steep rim immediately after the wall. It looks, from the outside, it's impressive with the details carved in the stone. It's impermeable, which is a defense mechanism. And as you say, Alexander the Great failed to dent the city and overtake it. And no windows again on the lower areas, which again is for defense. So it's got you can look over the top or look through an upper window, but there's no lower windows as a defense mechanism. So it looks as if the kingdom was that lower plains and the upper mountainous city. And the only way you're going to stay in an upper mountainous city is with a constant, reliable source of water. So I think something did happen, and it looks like earthquake country as well, doesn't it? But, it's all, even the mountains are sort of rubbly, as if they've been damaged and fallen.
The point I was trying to make is that even though everything you said is right, except the point I was trying to make is that it looks like they had an idea of seismic reactivity with the way they would build. So this is why the buildings are still standing today. So they would have had that relationship.
Yeah,
and
but they're not going to have the huge technology or the engineering to overcome a big earthquake, which would have just shattered everything. Including a water source. If there was a water source and they had lowlands and uplands, they could have remained in the uplands. The only thing that's going to stop them in that terrain is water. Yes,
I think the point I was going to make it was not the aqueduct did fail, right? But the issue is when the aqueduct failed, and at the point where there were few people.
It's not just going to damage an aqueduct. It's going to damage a lot more.
But lots of the buildings, as we see, and it didn't damage them. That's
they're all falling down. So you can't say there's been no, as you pointed out, there's been no excavation, no research at all. So it's up to individual conjecture.
Yes, no, I did say that. I did say, Ellen, that it's 50%. It was 50-50 on this one, Ellen. So in fact we're both right. Anyway. I did say that. So it is a lot of conjecture. You are very right, Alan. And it's sometimes, Alan, it's a good thing that it's just conjecture, because it certainly expanded your mind today on this, which is brilliant, and it's expanding everybody else's minds. And you're doing some more research there as well. So that's the whole point of doing this, and I really appreciate that. I do. Thank you. Thanks. So right, Jane, quickly, Pam, and Andrea. Right, then nobody wants to say anything. Pam don't want to say anything because I upset her. Pam?
No, just a quick one while the dogs have stopped barking. How about the disappearance of men? When men going off to war and you haven't got any men, then everything deteriorates, doesn't it? And that's not to boost your egos. It just happens. It happens in villages. If there's lack of men, then everything falls apart, doesn't it?
Right.
Yes, of course it does.
Okay, well done, Pam. Right, we'll move on. Go on, Jane.
Me?
Yeah.
No questions, and very interesting, thank you.
I can't see any other Janes around you. Jane? Hello? Right, okay, let's have the rabble and then we'll take a break.
I don't think we've got anything to say, except that maybe the aqueduct was sabotaged. If they were at war with somebody and they couldn't stop them any other way because they're so high up, maybe it's actually sabotaged as opposed to an earthquake.
So why didn't they then take over control of the city?
Oh!
Because they sabotaged the aqueduct.
Somebody wanted to take over the kingdom and the city. It's because they wanted it.
No, I don't mean take over that. I mean they wanted to conquer the people, not the city. They didn't.
Why
want
do that? If they don't want the kingdom and the city, why just get rid of the people?
Because the people maybe have been coming down and attacking them or causing their own problem. I mean, there's enough trouble now between Turkey and Cyprus, and always has been. There's no other reason for killing people.
Yeah, but the lowlands,
they just don't want them there.
The lowlands were there, and unless it was an area where other people actually wanted it to actually use and have the benefits of.
That's not necessarily why wars cause, though, is it? It's just to get rid of the people they don't like.
No, it's usually to get possession of the land and the goods.
Hitler killed all the Jews.
All right, let's move on. Right, we're having and if you want to start, he also killed a gypsy community, 500,000 of them as well, 250,000 Jehovah's Witnesses, so shut up. Anyway.
And they didn't want their caravans either, did they? They just wanted to get rid of the gypsies.
Yeah, exactly. Look at me. People want to get rid of me. Right, hang on, I'm having a break. You talk amongst yourselves.
Time for coffee.
Hey, that's the first time I've ever been on Ellen's side in an argument. Right, okay, we have a break now. Get back on the matron, shut your face. Ooh, chitter me not. Hey, Pam, babe, right? So, have you had any changes of mind on York then?
I say I'm interested, but I'd like to look into it a bit more with the flights and vaccinations all in the bag, isn't it? In a minute.
Yeah, all right then. Well, you've got a few weeks to let me know. Anyway, I got a dash.
Okay.
Good. Okay, see you in a minute.
Thank you.
Goff,
Hello.
your son's pub up in Yorkshire, is it anywhere near York?
Not really. No, it's it's about a couple of hours away. Skipton is the nearest place.
Skipton, is it? Oh, 'cause I'm probably going up it to York in August, so I was thinking of places to visit. So if his pub had been nearby, we probably would have gone there for a meal or something. But if it's
I wouldn't go there. Too expensive.
Too expensive. Oh dear. Right. Okay. Thank you for that.
No, it's a lovely
We'll go
place.
to Skipton.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's so much to see in York, you'd be preoccupied now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Because we're going probably for a week. So
well, you need a week, really, don't you?
That's it. Yeah, I've been there many years ago, but not for a while. So
well, that's what we want to do. We want to go up to York and then go to my daughter's, see my grandson that I haven't seen yet.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good drive.
Yes. Probably going out with my brother. You see, brother and his wife will drive up there.
Well, no, I mean, I'm say that. I mean, it's not all the meals are expensive. It's a very nice place, but
yeah, everywhere is these days, isn't it? But yeah.
When are you going in?
August.
Well, they should be open by then, shouldn't they?
That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah. Hopefully, everything will be open by June, July. So, because we want to stop at Leeds first, because I want to go to the Leeds Armouries, and then go on to York for maybe stay there for a week as well. So.
All right.
Something to do, isn't it, internally in the country?
You know, my son is a blacksmith, and he's got a little workshop down in Montnash.
Yeah.
And it's been a blacksmith shop for many, hundreds of years. And he just found out that it used to be an armory.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
He found a little plaque on the covered up with ivy, and it's a slate plaque, and it says whatever his name was, armorer.
Right.
Ooh.
Because the forge itself is very, very old, you know. So
yeah. Oh.
Whereabouts is it in Monknash?
Pardon?
Whereabouts in Monknash is it?
Just down from the pub, down on the main road.
Yeah, on the main road. Yeah.
Yeah, it's opposite the turn in. You turn right, go past the pub, and the church. I'm on the corner.
Yeah.
First right takes you to Brufton.
Yeah.
It's opposite that turn in on that
Oh,
side.
okay. Yeah.
But he's not there very often now because he's working and in Wicks, so he can't spend as much time there as he wants to. But yeah, that's where it is. Yeah.
And what does he make?
Whatever you want.
Does he?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Gates.
I think I might have to pay him a visit.
Well, you are pushed to find him in there, but he's usually there on a Sunday or a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But if you want anything made, let me know. See if we can. But it's all in disarray at the moment. It's very difficult for him, trying to keep 2 jobs going on his little work.
Have a nice weather vane or something like that.
Oh, he'll do all that. So he made some lovely stuff for me for the garden. These tripods, these things.
Oh, yeah.
That grow up. Yeah.
I could do with some of those.
Yeah.
If the price was right, yeah.
Yeah.
He went to college in Hereford. Did 4 years.
Did he?
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the only place left in the UK where they teach it.
Wow.
That's sad, isn't it?
Sorry, I went on a forge experience in Hereford.
Was it at the college?
Oh, no. Well, it was a place on its own in the wilderness.
Yeah, it sounds like his workshop in Monknash.
I made the knife. Well, when you say armory, from what era?
I think it must be 200 years old, because that's the. But that site where he is, that was all part of. Carl was telling me that's all part of the monastery.
Yeah.
So they were making all sorts of stuff there. And you look at it behind his little workshop, his shed, his building. You can see all these mounds of buildings that were there when the monks were there.
Right. Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes.
That whole area for miles and miles, even to opposite the river mouth at Ogmore. There are loads of monastic ruins and different things, but from all the monasteries.
Yeah. But the building's owned by the Dunraven estate. He rents it off them.
Yeah. What's his name?
Gareth.
The same as my son.
He looks like a blacksmith. About 20 stone, 6'2", beard.
So you wouldn't mess with him then?
No.
I'm trying to find a 40th birthday present for my son.
All right.
So I don't know. Anybody got any ideas? Let me know over the next weeks. The blacksmith's forge sounded like it could possibly have something to offer me, but I'm not sure.
No, well.
What is your son like?
He's into long distance running and things like that. But he likes old stuff, and he likes nice things in the house and garden. That's why I was thinking.
Yeah.
Why don't you get him an experience he can use when we're unlocked, like a balloon ride or a...
Yeah, I thought about that. Yeah. The only thing is, people have got in those over the years and they're adding up. He hasn't actually used all of them. One of them is to go to the, where you look at the what do they call it? Where you go and look at the stars and...
Astronomy.
Yeah, he really wants to go, but it happened just at the beginning of lockdown. So he's got a few waiting and I think he's got an experience in a car of some sort as well.
Right,
so
yes.
Yeah, but I did think of that.
Flying a Spitfire, you can do that for a couple of thousand.
Oh my God. I do want him to still be alive at the end of it.
Yeah, you can get Formula One racing cars and that, can't you?
Yeah, he's got. Yeah. That's what he's got. He's actually got one of those. But he's dying to use it.
That's why I got that forge thing for my friend's son and for me, because like a Groupon voucher, so you got it at a cheaper rate as well.
Oh yeah.
There's altruistic me.
Buy him a holiday.
Yeah, I did think it's their wedding anniversary this year as well, and I did think I would buy him a weekend away, and I can look after the children then, can't I?
Yeah, you could go to Prague or the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, or
Yeah.
if he likes
Yeah.
history. And
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
Or you could have
Ireland.
a break in this country in an unusual location, like a fort in Kent or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
In the English Channel, yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Lundy Island. There you are, Lundy Island. For 2 weeks. Watch for the
There's have to
puffin.
be a pub nearby. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a pub on Monday.
Yeah, Lundy Island's got its own pub, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in there. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. That's given me a few ideas.
How about two days with Carl on tour?
Whoa.
Carl might not speak to me again.
I want my money back.
Oh dear. I think they might drive each other mad.
I don't think you can really plan really very much, can you? You know, it's
No. The trouble is, he's got to plan something, otherwise it won't happen. So he's got to plan something that could go ahead, but could easily be cancelled at the spur of a moment.
Yeah, exactly.
I did tell him to leave it till next year, but he's not keen on that.
Same with all of us who are 70s this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all like to be doing nice big holidays, but
best present
who
I had
knows?
my 70th was my vaccine.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that
And
was
just
a
to
good
drink for it.
present.
Yeah. My son's just had a letter for his second.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
oh, right.
I know. I think they're trying to get the second ones. They've got a bit of a lull at the moment in vaccines.
Yeah.
So I think they're taking the opportunity to get some second vaccinations done with the Pfizer. Did he have the Pfizer?
Yeah, he did. I
Yeah.
think someone said they're sort of conserving that now so that everyone can have
Yeah.
their second jab
Yeah.
of it.
So
might
I
get
think
ours. Go
the lull is, you might actually. The
Yeah.
lull is only supposed to be for the next few weeks, though. So
Yeah.
Don't fancy going to Splot again, though.
Pardon?
You have to if you want the
I know.
Pfizer.
Splot
Hello.
Market. Talking about Splot Market, let's get back into it, lads, innit? So I've managed to get a few more images. I've managed to so let's get this right. Okay, let's get straight into it. Here we go. So I'm going to mute. I'm going to mute myself, so that'll be good. I'll mute Chris. Jane does my heading. Pam goes on about her dogs. I can't be asked. So I got the two boys. So right. All right. So let's get on with it. So so before the break. So before the break, we were, I mentioned that I was trying to get some more views from this site, which I've managed to do. Managed to get another thing of the gymnasium. Haven't managed to get, managed to get any more of the carvings that we mentioned. And I'll just check something else out a minute, because I'm just believe I'm Tomasos theatre plan. Just double check something a minute. See if I can get a plan up here. Oh yeah, I've got a plan here. Right, that's good. That was quite easy. And excellent, got it. So I'm going to save that, and we're going to put that in Wicked. I didn't realise to look there, so I'm just going to chuck that there with 43A. Brilliant, excellent. I've managed to find a plan, so that'll answer a few questions. And I'm just going to go off. I'm going to click off that as I'm mumbling, and we're going to click on that. And brilliant. Let's put a bit of background on. And 1, 2, 3. What are you seeing, Keith?
Oh, a nice bit of wall again with a mountain behind it.
There's nothing wrong with a bit of wall.
Nice bit of wall. Yeah, we likes a nice bit of wall.
We
we
likes
do.
a bit of wall. Right.
What's all that blue? What's all that blue?
Yeah, what's all that blue stuff? Is that the sea?
That's the sea. That's the sea. That's the sea.
You've got the picture upside down, haven't you?
Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on.
It's Australia.
It's raining now.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Whoa.
Now it's right.
Now it's
Just
right.
reflecting in a puddle.
Oh, you bloody asked you, and you should even be on mute. do you know what I mean? It's just like. Anyway, so what I've done, I've managed to find most of what, and the carvings. I've actually found some other carvings, and not the one that we were looking at earlier on. So which is good. So we're looking still at the gymnasium, and we're sort of looking side on, so you can get an idea of the thickness of that, and you can see the individual bits of that sort of false arch. And obviously, the mountain itself is very important to their identity, right? Not only from a spiritual sense, but also from an ancestral sense, because it's in that mountain that they're carving the tombs out of, and also in a living sense as well, because that stone itself is providing material for the buildings. So what we then have is, if we go back, we looked at this. I couldn't find any more of this, which is really disappointing for me, because I really wanted to see some more detail. But this is what we were talking about with the walls. Now, Ellen shot the gun a little bit too earlier, but not too early. I wanted to say something about this wall. This is the upper wall. So you've got the external wall in the city, which sort of deals with the drop, and yes, Ellen was right. It looked very ornamental. And one thing about these, they're almost terraced walls as well. There's a little bit of retaining back there, because you can actually clearly see drainage associated with this really nice chunk of wall. Now, there's something that really draws me to looking at this. So you've got the drain in there. It's likely that behind this wall, it's slightly retaining. It's slightly that there's going to be other things going on behind, cisterns and so on, and whatever. But one thing that I really wanted to show you is the way the stones work here. Can you see the way that there's the join in that stone there, that it's actually been cut in? Yeah. And you can see a similar effect there, and you can see a similar effect there. Now, and also the way that these stones work there. And the reasons why I was discussing that this stonework was being erected to deal with the seismic activity is, the proof is there. Because when we actually talk about stonework associated with the Inca, for example, when that's in a seismic region, that relates to dealing with the same problem. And that is what I was looking at, and that is what I was trying to say. I was trying to say that lots of the buildings have signs. The reason why they're still standing is that they've actually dealt with seismic problems over the years. I've been to sites that are in seismic zones, and you see the ancient ruins completely flattened, because they're built in the Greek or the Roman way. But there are clear indications that they wouldn't put these little cuts and so on in these stones if they weren't for a reason. They would just lay courses, and the courses are quite sort of distorted, and that's the particular point I wanted to say in regards to looking at this image of the wall. Now, I'm very wary now. I wanted to finish earlier today. I don't think it's going to happen. We had a 20-minute break, which was fine. I needed it. But I wanted to I dug up a load more images, and I just thought I wanted to show you just some more of the perspective of these people from their carvings, rather than why they disappeared and why they arrived and why they were besieged and why nobody captured it, and food and water and all the rest of it. I want to move away from that. And you can again get an idea of the subtleties of the way they used to love to carve into the rock, and then to have relief examples of carvings within these panels as well. Typical style that they're actually using. And again, more of their structures. You can see the arches there. Chris's point earlier on was very, very apt, because if you zoom in on this, and it was a very, very good point, actually, a very keen eye point. What you can't see there are not the regular keystones. There's no representative keystone in that. It's been created with a frame, but with a usual frame you would have a keystone in the center, and you'd have springer stones on either side, and it's almost as if architecturally these arches are slightly different from ones you might see elsewhere. And obviously block work, it would have been rendered over, and you can see that over time lots of these arches have been filled up because for various different reasons, not massive representations of windows. I was interested with that point earlier on that Ellen put forward about not having windows on the lower course. I would probably like to say that there's probably lots of other reasons why you're not going to have windows on the lower course. A lot to do with needing to deal with various problems with ventilation, and obviously what you need to do is up there, high up, it's going to get very cold and it's going to get very hot at alternate times of the year. But then again, if we move away from that, if we think about their architecture and how it's working, if you look in all amongst that, right, this is like a little child in a shop. You've got little carved panels. You've got a little bit of column over there, isn't it? You've got a little bit of a frieze there as well, and it's just all left, and you've got all the mosses on it. I love the way this actually works. And you wanted some views. This is if we get the orientation, I think this is actually looking over to the Taurus range, and this is looking sort of over towards the northwest, because this is the back of the theatre, and then the other view then I've got looking out towards the sea. I couldn't find these in because I think I was using a different search engine. That's actually looking out. Now I've actually got another view, and everybody be very careful when you're doing research. I nearly fell for it earlier on. Lots of images, when they put in Termessos, you actually come up with Termessos images. Termessos structures are slightly different from Termessos. Termessos, T-E-L, has a lot more Roman masonry because Termessos continued as a city well beyond Termessos. But I needed to tell you that because if you're going to be doing any research, you're saying, well, Karl didn't show me that building. Why didn't he show me that building? Because it's in a different locality, that's why. I know what Chris is going to be like next week. I saw this wonderful image. Oh, didn't really recognize it from the images last week. That's because it's a totally different location. You can actually, this is the view I actually wanted. This is looking directly out to sea. And there's me with the idea and thinking, well, Cyprus is a bit of a distance. Maybe you might get a mirage of Cyprus in the distance, right? But that, as we all well know, is the sky. And this is the sea. Yeah,
I agree.
No, you don't. You don't know anything. You're wrong. That was a test. Okay? But on a serious level, you're looking towards the sea. So you've got that beautiful view over towards the sea. Yeah, you're looking down mile after mile towards the sea from this beautiful theatre. And then, okay, not really set this out because I was doing a bit of a rush in the break, but looking down on the theatre, and you're thinking that theatre could just be alone. Oh, and actually, Chris, you've done it again. Spot the arch there. And I'm not going to take a vote, and I'm not going to take an opinion, but I would say that I'm personally for the fact that this should just be left. I feel that in archaeology we've got enough to look at, we've got enough to understand. I think LiDAR, all modern archaeological techniques can tell us a lot more than one concentrated archaeological excavation in a little area, right? And even if we do have a little concentrated archaeological excavation in a little area, it's going to be so full of masonry and it's going to be so mixed up because of the way this has worked, it's going to not really give us a complete picture. Again, it goes back to the old thing. If you're going to get a real picture of the site, you excavate all of it. I'm not saying you excavate any of it. And you're going to lose the context of what you're actually seeing at now if you excavate this site. You can disagree with me, but I've done archaeology for a long time to come to that conclusion. I got to be honest with you. I had to show these two idiots walking on that wall.
Ooh.
You the one on the left?
No, I'm the one on the right actually. But I did say these two idiots, so I was just Chris. Sometimes you give as much as you get, to be honest with you, and that's a good demonstration. So there is this wonderful theatre. Can you actually see usually what you do see with a standard Odeon? This is why you've got another Odeon site. You would actually have that sort of end in there, but it does actually curve around a little bit more. Obviously, if you're going to be sat here, you're not really going to be able to see what's going on in the middle of the stage. So this works less like an Odeon, more of a theatre, because you do have the Odeon and theatre side, as I said before the break. And this is why I kept using the word amphitheater, because it was given that sort of elliptical sense. It was actually curving all the way around. But there's the stalls in front. And again, I just wanted to give you an idea. And if I'm really trying to wrap my brains to try to see how you would have been able to fit, 5,000 people in there, right? But maybe the stalls were raised further. So if you look at the likes of, maybe there would have been wooden stalls as well, that you could have had an upper tier, which would make lots of sense. Like any theatre, really, you've got the extra stalls projected. And actually, when you look at the scale of this, you look at the scale, and it doesn't look as big on the ground. With looking at this, the images make it look much bigger. That's what I feel anyway. And this is another image of what we were talking about earlier on, just before we were talking about this wonderful facade behind me. And again, you're looking into the site. One question that was being asked at me in the morning and in the evening: why haven't we got more buildings of the Vulgaris? And I basically said the Vulgaris buildings wouldn't have been as grand as these buildings. And I think maybe the point Ellen was trying to make, that we don't know enough about the common people to really understand what's going on, and that's a really good point. But look at this here. This is this intercourse with the rock, and you've got the carvings into the rock, and that. I'm trying to. I wish I had more information about this. This is carved directly solid. This is into the solid stone, right? But that to me looks like that could be hollow. But I'm really struggling to work out much more. But what you do have is actually looks like you've got steps leading up to it, so that's accessible for people to actually go up. So this sort of what I was saying earlier on about the parallel with the Etruscans. Obviously the Nabataeans is coming into trying to make an inference of different places, and look at that there. Now again, the question was, why is part of the rock dark and why is the part of the rock not, and why is there damage to the face? Well, it's quite an easy. That looks like there's no stirrups on there. It's obviously within that sort of culture of not needing stirrups, but what you can see is there is bacteria on the one side and there's not bacteria on the other side. So the bacteria is eaten away at the face and the face is gone. It's not deliberate damage to the face, but this is actually quite atstroid. Equus is quite a nice stallion here.
Is it Pegasus? Is that a wing?
Why not? Is that a wing? Oh shit! My French, yeah, it is. That's a wing. That's the outlines of. Yeah, that's Pegasus. There it is, and it sort of loops around there. That is right. That's a wing. Oh, well done. I didn't see that.
Oh.
Oh, cool. And oh, wow. Yeah, thanks for that. I didn't spot that myself. But what you can see, you know what I like? The other thing I like about this is you've got a 3D effect. You've got one of the legs on this side, the right leg, and you've got the other left leg there. And if you look gently, you can, because it's striding along. So you've got. I just saw it earlier on. If I move back up again, hang on a minute. Let's clear that. Move back up. I sort of glimpsed it. You've got the other front hind coming in there. No, I'm wrong. Yeah, it's there and it comes back in there. That's right. So you got the left hind, and you got the forward. Yeah, that's right. So you got the two there. Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, that's our Pegasus.
Well, bless him.
Exactly. Yeah, bless him. Yeah, I said it's a him. It's got to be a him now. And again, you've got this. You've got again. This is supposed to be this. Not supposed to be. This is part of the gymnasium, and you can just see an architectural feature of the curved arch above, and this sort of doorway at the bottom. And what I'd like to do now is, before I go completely away from what I wanted to tell you before the break. Right, I want to tell you a little bit about the archaeology. So I'll tell you a bit about the archaeology, and we'll do the images, then we'll finish. So in the first half of the 1800s, first European explorers arrived to Termessos. Among them were Thomas Abel Sprat and Edward Forbes. Yes, same Edward Forbes, who described their findings in southern Asia Minor in the book Travels in Lycia, published in 1847. Charles Fellows, yes, you could have come across him before, the British archaeologist, also visited Termessos. The results of these first travels, remember, no excavations, to the ruins of Termessos were described of the preserved buildings and first plans of the ancient city. In the 1880s, Termessos was repeatedly visited by Polish researcher KARL-JAMES. Oh, I said it right! Whose detailed descriptions and a carefully drafted plan of the city, along with the sketches prepared by George Nyman, were published in the second volume of the Cities of the Pamphylia and the Pisidia tribes. Lankaroniski, said it wrong then, wrote. Now this is what he wrote. He'd been there many times in the 1880s. Of all the cities of Pisidia which we have visited, Termessos has the most peculiar and the greatest position. It is at the time a watchtower commanding a distant view, a nest buried deeply in a valley, surrounded by a ring of mountains. If its inhabitants indulged in brigandage, they could not find a better hiding place than in this eagle's nest. Unfortunately, fortunately, since the end of the 1800s, not much has been learned about Termessos, because only the surface surveys of the ruins have been conducted so far. It is amazing that such an interesting and mysterious city has encouraged archaeologists to conduct a systematic research. So I should not. Did I say the word not? I'll read that again. It is amazing that such an interesting and mysterious city has not encouraged archaeologists to conduct systematic research. So we'll show you all the remaining images. I've done everything I wanted to say. There is a museum nearby, but obviously not at the top. It's got a glass cabinets with flora and fauna in, and a few artifacts collected from the surface. There was a road that led to Termessos. It was known as the Royal Road, but it was a bit of a winding road. Bits of the road date back to 100 years after the birth of Jesus Christ, and basically it's not a usable road at this minute. So you've got the city walls and the gates, what you're met by straight away. The gymnasium, that interesting building that we'd be looking at behind us, with the baths all hidden there. Behind the upper ramparts, that upper wall that we've been talking about, would have been political and economic area of the city. Unfortunately, today most of the buildings that once stood here are completely destroyed or severely damaged. If you look carefully, you can spot a section of the old colonnaded street and some fragments of the sewer system. Very important when we think about the cisterns as well. And you've got the unidentified buildings, the agora that we've mentioned, the beautiful, absolutely beautiful theatre. It's given a figure here of 4,200 people and not 5,000. I'm thinking, I can't work out you can get 3,000 people in there, let alone anything else. So, you know, there's lots of temples, as I say, over 6 temples, and the necropolis, which is all around lots of the graves. The carvings and the graves and the sarcophagi, which we're going to quickly look at now. So let's get on to these images. So gymnasium and a bit more, another view of the temple associated with the likes of Emperor Hadrian. So Emperor Hadrian is out and about, so he's still alive about 130 AD. So he's probably maybe visited the site. That sort of image earlier on, you've got that there where you had that nice sort of flowery design on the stone. That was part of the temple. So we see that sort of falling down onto the steps. And again, another beautiful view. Can you just see that little bit of stonework just wobbling there? Just a little, get those 2 guys to jump up and down on there and it'll just fall down, bastards. Yeah. And you can see the size of this stonework. It's quite colossal stonework, to be honest. It is really big stonework. It gives you another idea. And the way that, and actually, right, if you're not convinced by these people having knowledge about seismology, just like the Inca did, look at that detail there. That takes a lot of work. And that's going to balance and counteract any seismic activity. And look at that there as well. You've got all these indications that these people really knew what they were doing. And this is why this wall is still standing today, because some sections of the walls were built to withstand the pressures placed onto it by the seismic activity, which is well known of in the area. So again, moving on a little bit more, look at these, and this is just in the streets for people to see this, the sarcophagus. Yeah, it's there, and look at those beautiful cherub faces on the side there. It's again, I've left the best till last. Well, been quite a lot, and there it is. Look at the little head there, little carving on the stone. So obviously, I'm presuming, I'm going to make the presumption that lots of this stuff was painted, and a little bit of leaf on there as well. And look at that one there. Isn't that absolutely spectacular? Jane's got to go. Jane, we'll see you next week. We love you lots, and no doubt, Jane, you can watch the recording. See you, Janey babes. So look at that again. Look at the way that is actually presented, and again, we start to see a glimpse of these people through their carvings. And look at that there. It's just like, well, my God, you know, this. I had to double check. I was just trying to work out this is Termessos or Tomasos. I'm quite convinced this is at Termessos. But again, an example of where the burials and the plaques and the ritual areas are in regards to the city. It's all together. These people did everything together. It's almost, I don't know if they must have had sort of certain zoned areas, but it seems to be a hodgepodge of everything together. And somebody's been in there. You know that this is at Tomasos because there it is. You've got this wonderful range in front of this. Zeus or Limas. And as we start to go in again, look at that there. Look at the survival in the masonry there, associated with this gymnasium, associated with this bath. They're still standing there today, and they were built to last, and they truly were built to last. But it's almost as if you've got a car boot sale of sarcophagi here. It's all over the place. Now this is seismic activity. Yeah. Yes, I am saying seismic activity did damage large sections of the city, but other parts of the sections of the city survived because of their awareness of building. But you can't really build. These have all been smashed and tossed around with the movements, and you can clearly see that there. That's the demonstration of what earthquakes can do. And you're walking down a street of tombs, within sort of nearby some of the houses and so on. Again, this is what I tried to show you earlier on. Again, the gymnasium, and I wanted to sort of show you Oh, actually, this is the last image. Oh, blow it! I wanted more. But anyway, this is what I want to show you earlier on. Another image of the gymnasium, and you've got this sort of the false arch here, and you've got the blocked up windows and so on. And that's an architectural feature. You know, my children live in a place called Llanfoist, and on a housing estate that they live in, which was built sort of in about 15 years ago. You drive down the street. They're nice houses actually, and you get false windows. And people build them as features and false windows, and you get false doors as well. And I just think, I don't know why they do this. I don't know why they did it in the past. If somebody can tell me why, that's great. That's quite answer to a question. So on that note, that's me done today. That's me out, and I'm so pleased I had the coffee because that's really made me re-engage. So I'm gonna cut that now, and I'm going to we've lost our Jane now, little Jane. So I gotta be honest with you. Well, Jane, when you give Jane a hug, right, it's like she's tiny. So anyway, yeah, Jane Goff.
He's not a little.
No, great, very good. That's very good. Thank you.
And actually, Goff, whilst before Chris asks, because I know she's going to ask what we're doing next week, so I'll tell you what we're doing next week. Next week we're back in ancient Egypt.
Ah, great.
So we've sort of stayed in Europe the next couple of weeks. Anyway, Keithy, babes.
I was just speculating on why it might have collapsed. What about trade as an answer? Maybe whatever they were trading in collapsed, or maybe a trade route that they used also collapsed, or something like that. Well,
actually, I think we've I think we've used that as an answer for one of the other civilizations that we've looked at before, and I can't remember which city, but there was one city that was so reliant upon trade that suddenly all trade went by, and the city was. I'm actually thinking of Ctesiphon, actually, in Iraq, which. I'm thinking of the trade links dried up there, and there's also a religious element to do with the rise of Muhammad. But trade could be a massive reason, and if it was a specific thing that they were trading in. But when you've got lack of diversity, it also doesn't allow your city to expand to such a degree. So I think we've got to go down this avenue that things don't last forever, and maybe it's time to go. Or maybe Ellen, me, you, we're putting too much into it. Maybe it was time for the city to go.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'll give you a good example. I'll give you a really good example. When the Spanish had conquered all of Central America, there was a city. Can you remember the Darien scheme I mentioned before? The Scots tried to set up a colony. Yeah. Well, a bit further up the coast, there was a Spanish town that was established in the late 1500s, and it had been abandoned. And it had been abandoned just because it had been abandoned. There was a nice harbour there, and everything was fine. And they said, well, the Scots should have gone there. They could have established a colony fine. It would have been there. But there was no reason why that was abandoned. There was no reason, right? No. It was just abandoned. And it was said, well, the Scots could have gone there and it could have just taken over and it would have been fine. There was no one there. But we do get that. If we want to look at Mesa Verde and the wonderful people of the Pueblo people, what we do see is we don't have answers. And maybe I'm going to put my hands up in the air and say we don't need answers on this one. Easy one. Thanks, Keith. What about you, Chris, babes? See, the other Chris didn't go for it straight away. He didn't even.
I'm playing hard to get, mate.
You always were.
So the other Chris ain't saying anything because she don't want to put her mic on. I've asked her to unmute. Muted. Right, do you want to say anything, male, Chris?
No, it's fascinating. No, very good lecture.
Good. Ellen, with all due respect, I'm not disagreeing with anything you've said. I'm just trying to say that maybe there's something else, really else. What I'm trying to say is there's something going on that I don't think we understand.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a perfect place for a city, and them because you literally are in the lap of the gods. You know,
yes, you are.
Everything, you've just got the glory and the wonder and the immensity of everything that you rule. It's a wonderful place for a city.
Yeah, that is something.
Water.
That is something that we'll massively agree on, and that is something to agree on. Yes. Anyway, thanks for that, Ellen. Nothing from female Chris.
No, that was very interesting. Thanks, Carl.
Good. Talking about Pam. Pam.
I'll switch this on then.
Just one thing, you know the arches that Chris said about.
Yeah.
If they're wall strengthening arches, which you do get in the UK as well, do they need a cornerstone? Are they just for strengthening a wall?
You're talking about the fly and buttress type of thing, that you just use an arch to strengthen the wall and all the rest of it. To actually load bear, to actually just have some assemblage of load bearing, and I would say when if we just quickly look at that image, when we're back to one of the images, just really briefly. If we look back to the gymnasium, yeah, you've got that idea maybe that's going to offer you height and give you strength to the wall, but it is actually quite ornate, and it is actually quite a feature. And we've seen.
Not that one.
We're talking back to that one, maybe.
No, with the 3 in it.
Oh.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's disappeared.
And it went.
Right, it's gone. But I think I know what you mean. Yeah, I do.
They were in the wall, weren't they? Not as decorative.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. If they are
there. Those ones.
Yeah. If they're wall strengthening, do they have the cornerstone?
To be honest with you, it might be. It's worth looking at. Yeah, we'll leave that one there, but it is worth looking at. So the only thing now we need to do is let the cackling hags talk. So which one first?
Right, 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, you said population was around 150,000.
Which I don't agree with. Thank you very much. I think it's a lot
I was
lower.
going to say, on what basis have they come to that conclusion?
From what I'm seeing, from what my gut tells me, it's more like 50 or 30.
Right, and also, how do they know if there's been no work done there? How do they know what the use of some of these buildings were? For example, how did they know that building was a gymnasium?
From comparing it with other buildings in other cultures, but this is a unique culture in itself, so the answer is we don't. But obviously the theatre is a theatre, but the way, so temples, the temple of Hadrian there is similar to other temples of Hadrian that I've actually seen, so you know that's a temple of Hadrian, right? But and the other thing you mentioned, back to the other thing of the other question about population. Now, for me, if you want to compare the buildings that are surviving, that you can see the big buildings, there's not enough big buildings to warrant a population of 150,000. There's probably enough major buildings to probably more indicate 30 or 50,000 as at Pompeii rather than 150. 150,000, back to Ellen's point, is a lot of water for one bloody aqueduct and a load of bloody cisterns.
They could have been on the lowlands, and the upland, that place out in the city, could have been the centre of government and that.
Maybe the figure
where the majority of the people live.
Maybe the figure is for the population of the city-state rather than the city itself. So we're trying to get around that. So anything else from you guys before we finish?
No, nothing else.
Oh, okay then. Right. What as I said at the beginning, we might start little walks soon for very small numbers of people. I will give you some information about that next week. If not, if anyone wants to start chat about the Roman thing or that book at the end, they can. But if there's no other questions, I'm really delighted that you joined us this week. Looking forward to next week. Egypt next week is going to be, again, naturally something different. It's not the Great Pyramids next week, put it that way, and it's not Cava. if nobody wants to say anything else, I really appreciate you joining us this week, and thank you very much, Goff, the two Chris's, the Ellen, the Keith, the Pam, the Andrea, Jim, Cackle Karen, and Kathy Kettle. Thank you very much, folks.
Okay,
Take care.
cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, children.
Bye-bye.
I love you, children. I embrace you, my children.
Love you, Daddy.
Well, as Napoleon
Missing
said.
you already.
Napoleon said, "I'll miss you, my children."
Oh, where's me dinner? That's what he said.
Did he? All right, then.
Bye.
All right, then. Bye-bye, Keith. I got Chris. Anything you want to say, Chris?
No, I'm off. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Do you know what? I got to call you something else. What? Have you got a middle name?
William.
Do you mind me calling you William?
No.
All right, then. William, that's it.
What did I used to be called, yeah.
You used to be called what?
Well, the kids used to call me Wally.
I won't go that far, mate. Anyway, it's been a pleasure as usual. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, will do. There you go.
Take care, Chris. Cheers. Bye. Bye-bye. Again, thank you, everybody watching. I think you had a little waffle in the middle of that as well. So I'll see if I can edit that out, I think, maybe. And just thanks for watching. Yeah, join my channel. It's £1.99 a month. Just join it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like. I really appreciate your support. KARL-JAMES Langford over and out for my lecture today for Archaeology Cymru, Archaeology Virtual Online. And thank you very much. And if you want to join the classes as well, just let me know. Just details down below. Just contact us. Thank you very much. It's £48 for 2 months, which is like 8-9 classes. Cheers. Bye.